3-105. Use your pattern finding skills to copy and complete the table below. So the first question here, or A, says, explain the pattern you found in your table. How are X and Y related? So I have to admit this one had me stumped for a little while. I looked at how X was increasing, and it was pretty much increasing by 1 until it started skipping up. And I could tell that Y was getting smaller as X increased, but I couldn't figure out the pattern. So first it looked like this was half, but then it skipped and went half at this number, which I thought, no doubt this is 4. And so then I couldn't figure out, this wasn't half of this, and this wasn't half of this. So then I went back to the question and I found a clue. It says, how are X and Y related? So then I started looking at X and Y, and that's when I noticed 1 times 24 is equal to 24, 2 times 12 is equal to 24, and 6 times 4 is equal to 24, and 12 times 2 is equal to 24. So that's when I realized that I had kind of cracked the code and I could fill in the rest of my table. So I did know that, that this was probably 4, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I put the 4 in. And then I started looking at it that way. 1 times 24 is 24. 2 times 12. 3 times something is 24. That would be 8. So I filled that in. And then 8 times 3 is 24. So I needed the 3 here. And 24 times 1 is 24. Okay, so I was able to fill in my table by figuring out that it was X times Y had to equal X times Y had to equal 24. Okay, so then that was A, and so we can put A next to the table. But then I went on to the next question that said, write the rule you described in part A in algebraic symbols. Okay, so I kind of did that already. I knew that X times Y had to be equal 24. But if I'm going to write that in over here, I have to find out what Y is equal to. And so I decided, well, if these are being multiplied together, I can undo that multiplication by dividing by X on both sides. So I know that X over X is equal to 1. So this would just be Y. And then over here, it would be 24 over X, or 24 divided by X. And so that's how I can express what Y is. X is just X, but Y is equal to 24 over X, or 24 divided by X. So I put that in the table. All right, the next part is we need to use the points in the table to graph this rule on graph paper and then describe the shape. Okay, so let me move this up so you can see my graph paper, because we still need to see the table. And then for my graph paper, I figured that, okay, it had to go up to 24 in the X's, and it also had to go up to 24 in the Y's. And so I started at the top of the paper, and I just figured this was, I'd start at 25 and then I'd count down by 5s. And so that's what I've done here. And so 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So I can draw the line here. And then I also needed 25 going on the x-axis too. So I can draw that line here. The paper's getting in the way, my ring binder. Okay, so this is also 25. And I don't have to label every single one. I can just go 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25. And the same thing, and of course this has to be the x-axis. And then the same thing going up, I can go 5, 10, 15, 20, and at the top that's going to be 25. And I need to label this as the y-axis. All right, and then I can start graphing the points that I have in my table. So x is 1, and y is 24. So x is 1, and y is 24. That's just below 25. So there's 1. And then 2 is going to be 12. So that's right here. And then let's see, 3 is 8. 4 is going to be 6. 5 is going to be 4.8. So that's right about there. And then we start going back in the other direction. 6 is 4. And 8 is 3. And 12 is going to be 2. And 24, which is way over here. Oops, I'm off the chart. Okay, so 24, which is way over here, is going to be 1. All right, so that's my shape, and I can I'm going to connect the ones that are closer together first because it's easier to see how those go together. And then I'll just have to sort of estimate how this is going to go. And then that keeps going forever. So we put an arrow at the top of it. And then I'll try to sort of get this one too. All right. So then the last thing they want us to do is to describe this shape. And you could describe it as a curve that goes in both directions. And you could see that the farther it gets away from the origin, the closer it moves to the x-axis. And the farther it gets away from the origin, the closer it moves to the y-axis. So you're not familiar with this, but this is actually called a hyperbole, or hyperbola, sorry, not hyperbola. And the definition of that is, well, it is a function that, as I described, it gets closer to this line in one direction and that line in the other direction. And you could see that we've only graphed half of it. If we had negative numbers, then we would find out that that it also graphs over here. But we're just interested in this part. So that's what we've graphed with our graph.